So good day everyone. The part of Indigenous people education I choose is Ifugao. By the way, I'm Joy Adyag, one of the Indigenous people from Banawe, Ifugao. The Ifugao Indigenous People Education. Indigenous knowledge and learning system have long been recognized as indispensable components of Indigenous people's education, but formal education system usually neglect this Indigenous knowledge. Thus, the Ifugao students learn about Shakespeare but remain ignorant of their own epics, such the Hudhud and the Alim. The Hudhud and the Alim is an epic story from the province of Ifugao. The Hudhud features the character of Aligoyon, Bugan, and their families, and the elements of the early civilization which rose in the mountain province, while Alim explore the character of their god Bathala called Makanongan, the lives of their several gods and deities, and their idea of heaven. Alim is sung as part of their ritual religious song. So, they study mathematics and the Egyptian pyramid pero hindi nila alam kung paano ginawa ang kanilang ancestors ang spectacular mountains of Pajau or rice terraces, and the thatched roof and nail-free wood houses na tinatawag na falay in Northern Highland Philippines. Samantala, ang mga mangyan naman sa Mindoro ay natuto ng Western poems, ngunit hindi ang kanilang mga tradisyon that have been inscribed in their famous Ambahan poetry. The U.S. education in Northern Luzon. In 19th century, the Spanish missionaries Juan Villaverde and Julian Malumbres introduced a number of Ifugaos to reading and writing, as well as other more practical skills. During the American occupation, classes were taught irregularly by soldiers of the American military who visit the village of Kiangan between 1900 and 1903. So, Kiangan is one of the municipalities of Ifugao. So, in 1904, the Bureau of Education sent James Travis to open a school in Kiangan that organized American educational efforts began in Ifugao. And other schools followed, including Banawe in 1905, opened by Henry Otley Beyer, and in Mayoyaw in 1908, opened by Benjamin Blitz. So at first, the Kiani school was received well by the Ifugaos at the area, and 150 attendance of pupils was reported. But a remarkable decrease in interest occurred when pupils were introduced to the American curriculum, at nung ma-realize din ng mga magulang na hindi na tumutulong o nag-aambag ang mga bata sa mga gawain sa bahay. The Ifugaos were not familiar with the American educational process, and this knowledge was of uncertain benefit, seemingly unequal to the services that children traditionally provided at home, such as caring for younger siblings, chopping firewoods, or helping in the fields. So, ang mga Ifugao ay hindi pamilyar sa prosesong pang-edukasyon ng mga Amerikano, at ang kaalamang ito ay walang tiyak na pakinabang, parang hindi balanse ang oras ng mga bata sa school at sa bahay dahil hindi na nila nagagawang mag-alaga ng kapatid, yung mga nakababatang kapatid nila, magsibak ng kahoy na panggatong o tumutulong sa bukid. So, maraming mga magulang ang nadi-discourage sa kanilang mga anak na mag-aral dahil sa paniniwalang sila ay nagiging tamad na at walang natutunan. So, the pioneering teachers tried to employ mechanisms to attract the pupils, but those did not last long. So, Bayer even tried to attract children by providing free lunch in school. Subalit, kapag wala ng free lunch, wala na ring estudyante pumapasok. So, some leaders still remember that officers rounded up Ifugao children and forced them to go to school. And in order to address the decreasing interest of pupils and parents, the Americans used the few Ifugaos who successfully finished the 4 years of primary levels instruction as examples. The two of these successful students were employed in the American colonial structures at the local level and later entered politics at the national level. Their communities saw them as successful and saw the American school system as a passport to better employment and a better future. So despite many years of dominance by the US influenced Philippine formal educational system, some of indigenous communities have managed to maintain aspects of their cultures, including their learning systems. Indigenous children at an early age are taught livelihood skills, including those in which they can develop expertise. So, simula sa 10 taong gulang, ang mga Ifugao children learn skills such as paot or wood carving in English, afor or weaving, and topeng in English is stone riprapping, and uman or genealogy mapping. Among the Mangyans, ambahan are taught by the elders to the children. During community occasions of informal family gatherings, the young learn the village norms and mores, their family stories and genealogies, and local literature and oral traditions. The learning system are embedded in highly defined oral traditions and livelihood activities. Thus, learning becomes relevant as it is made part of the daily activities where needs, entertainment, and cultural enrichment are addressed. And African educator Catherine Odora Happers explains that indigenous knowledge systems enable us to move the frontiers of discourse and understanding of the science as a whole and to open new moral and cognitive spaces in which constructive dialogue and engagement for sustainable development and collective emancipation can begin. So in the process of changing the content of curricula and educational system, an integrated research project which may be drawn from classroom-based research, teacher training, collaborative projects of various institutions, and the active participation of indigenous peoples can forward the role of education as emancipatory for indigenous peoples. In this way of education is directed at empowering the indigenous peoples and helps enhance their role as decisive agent of cultural advancement. Recognizing that culture is dynamic yet powerful, indigenous peoples should be introduced to Western knowledge system but at the same time be equipped with the skills to understand the context of such knowledge so they will not look down on traditional cultures as inferior.